Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for my client Michelle's vlog. And a few people have noticed that I quit putting the workouts at the start. It's because number one, I don't think people really read them. Number two, the truth is, you guys know most of these vlog clients are on conjugate. There's only one who isn't. And you guys know conjugate, we do 4 day upper lower max effort dynamic effort for the most part. So you guys know the format. You can just see what exercises they're doing, right? And get an idea of their volumes, but their volumes really vary. So not really that big of a deal how many total sets they're doing. So with Michelle, we start the week off with this time we did just her normal bench press, which is closed grip, because she has to do a lot of her upper body work closed grip due to some surgeries in her shoulder. So afterwards, I have her do neutral grip pull-ups. We do floor presses right now, right? So neutral grip pull-ups. We do floor press. These are all for, sets of 10 other than things like body weight movements, in which case we just, leave 1 to 2 reps in reserve on each set. And again, she's pretty strong on pull-ups and chin-ups. I think her best chin-up, and I may let her add some chin-ups in again coming up, but her best chin-up is something like she did like 15, I think. So the floor presses are done then for sets of 10, and then I have her do some shoulder work, right? We do shoulder work. We do, on this day, on max effort right now, we do lateral raises with dumbbells. And, I'm getting more and more into making a lot of my lifters do more shoulder work. I used to find I could get guys and girls really strong without much of it. But realistically speaking, it's probably better for their bench overall if we build the full delt. Probably better for overall shoulder health. Again, just for benching purposes. Number two, it makes people look more jacked. And since I call a lot of what I do orc mode, I think having the big delts probably worth it. It's a big deal. Of course, she did some toe to bars in here, which somehow the files got mixed. I think these should have been on one of the lower days, because after she does the laterals, we then do rear delt flies. But there's her toe to bars. Again, gives an idea of her core strength. Again, very, very strong woman. All right, then we do, again, reverse flies. So if we combine these two movements together, we really get a great deal of shoulder development. We get a lot of variation, and then we focus a little more on front delts on her dynamic effort day, but that still works the whole delt also. But I like to use all these movements. I like to use upright rows for some of my people. I do upright rows, but again, depending upon the lifter, when we do delt work, like you guys have seen Emma do cables, right? You've seen her do cables for her delt work. Of course, she does fine with the barbell on upright rows. All right. Afterwards, Michelle does 5 sets of band press downs. Again, I want to really, really work on her tendons. And I know over time I want to start adding more heavy tricep work in for her eventually. But I think keeping in mind that all of her benching is closed grip, we get a good amount of tricep work. All right, much better on hitting depth this time. I'm having her work on that a lot. We did a successful back squat there, 265. Felt like she had a little bit more in the tank, so we're good. So yeah, nice 265 back squat. That bench was 155 for her closed grip bench. Then she pulled 305 conventional. She ramped up though on this and got like 295 first, and then she did 305. So, we're knocking on the door now of a 315 pull, which is really what I need her to do at her next meet. Okay, also what we're doing, goblet squats now. And it's because she was struggling to hit depth a little bit on those squats. And I want to make sure her quads and adductors are fully developed, right? And I know she does a lot of sled work and that helps. But again, some goblet squats are not a bad idea. And I like these. I like these quite a bit. You guys have seen quite a few of my lifters over time do these as an assistance exercise to their squat. And again, I like these. I also like these for novice lifters to teach them how to squat. I think it's very, very good for that. All right. After that, we do glute ham raises and reverse hypers. again, exercises we tend to live on, even though I'm not doing as many GHRs right now, and I've busted my GHR pad again, and no replacement available anytime soon. But I'm also about to order a whole new setup anyways. All right, that's the game plan, tentatively, is to order a new setup. So, I'm not that worried about it. All right, and then she does reverse hypers, and letting her can add weight on these quite a bit. I want her to get really strong at these because realistically, glutes and hamstrings, her posterior chain really are what's limiting our big lifts. If we can bring up her glutes, hamstrings, all her hip extension muscles, I think we're going to be in a very, very good place. Like, this is what holds her back, right? This is what we need to get her big power lifts where we want them to be, is to get that posterior chain up. All right. Okay. Speed bench. We used chains again this week. Up in the near future, I'm going to have her work with some bands on these. We're going to work with bands coming up here soon. But 3 sets of 9. She doesn't rotate grips like a lot of my people do because she has to do closed grip. Again, in closed grip, neutral grip pull-ups, which, again, I like the neutral grip pull-ups. And unfortunately, I can't vary her grips that much, so we don't worry about it. All right. And because I'm doing a lot of extra delt work and upper back work, I'm letting her mostly focus on these. I'm not as worried about dumbbell rows because all the other upper back can be handled with the dumbbell work and things that we do. All right, afterwards, again, we focus quite a bit on a little more focus on front and side delts today. But, again, the rear delts still get worked with all this stuff. But, again, these are more specific to our benching. So then she does seated dumbbell presses and then plate front raises afterwards. So when we start looking at all the angles we're then hitting her delts from every week, we should start seeing some very, very good growth in those. Because on one of the days, on max effort day, I'm having her do lateral raises and rear delt flies. On dynamic effort, we're doing seated dumbbell presses and then plate front raises. So four different movements for her delts at the moment, which is a lot. It's a lot. And I wouldn't always give this much to drug-free men because they don't need that much volume. But I think what people have to remember, and it's been studied, we know why it is, but women in general can handle a little more total training volume. And a lot of it has to do with a slightly reduced absolute strength. Like pound for pound, women just don't lift as much weight as men at the same experience levels. They don't. Right, so it's usually very, very serious women who lift very seriously versus untrained men. They're stronger. But once we start training, it matters. But that also affects volume. So for those of you out there who are coaching, remember your ladies can handle more total sets usually than your men can and recover from it. And they can even take shorter breaks between sets and bounce back quicker. All right, and most coaches who've worked with both are aware of this. All right, box squats. So she's getting a little better at not letting the knees travel forward as much, which is good. She's also on a very deep box. These are well below parallel. But yeah, box squats against chains for dynamic effort. And then I believe she's doing sumo this week for speed pulls. Yep. So we have sumo speed pulls against chains. And I have her doing doubles on all this. And yeah, I took out the good mornings for now, even though I love good mornings. She really needs the goblet squats a little more than we're getting the posterior chain work. I think between the dynamic work, GHRs, and glute ham raises, she's pretty good there. So again, these goblet squats, teaching her to squat deep, to get into a deep position. It's working the mobility and everything that we want. People will say, do you do mobility or prescribe mobility exercises? No, strength training done correctly should handle that. So here's what I would say to anyone who's talking about hip mobility and things. Well, you don't think this will build your hip mobility? And you're doing it against load. Right? We're doing it against load. All right, that's what develops mobility. Mobility has to have a strength component. All right, you will never improve mobility by stretching. It's not going to happen. You will do it by resistance training through long ranges of motion. All right, and of course, then we finish off with glute ham raises and reverse hyperextensions. Again, usually a good choice. Although, I mean, we could make arguments about some of the issues with the glute ham raise in general, particularly having to do with almost feeling overuse and always fatigue and soreness and cramps and stuff for a lot of lifters from them, which I do happen to get. But they will still build very, very big hamstrings any way you break it down. But, you know, they're not essential, and I want people to remember that. They're like, oh, if I don't have access to a GHR, well, no big deal. Just use lengthened position movements. You'll be fine. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.